Hey guys, and welcome to another Animal Crossing video. I'm Crossing Channel, and I've seen a lot of discussion lately about the lifespan of the game and how long we might expect to see content updates for Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, we've already seen a year's worth, so how much longer can we expect to see this game get updates? Well, it actually seems like Nintendo has a 2 to 3 year update plan for the game. So in this video, I wanted to take a look at all the evidence for that and go over how long we might actually expect to see major content updates for the game, using evidence that we know from previous games and other games that Nintendo have worked on. So if you're excited for this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for more Animal Crossing content. So we got an interview last year from Aya Kyogoku, one of the main developers for Animal Crossing New Horizons, and one really interesting point which a lot of people talked about back then was her saying that we want to make sure that in 2 years or 3 years down the road, players will still continue to find new surprises in the game. This was in context of her talking about the game getting future updates, and back then it seemed like Nintendo didn't really know exactly what every future update would contain, but they had a good idea that they wanted to keep updating the game for a long time. Now, bear in mind this interview was originally in Japanese, so it's very likely that some of this was mistranslated and that maybe she didn't directly mean they plan on updating the game for 2 to 3 years. However, it does seem incredibly likely that we'll see at least some kind of updates continuing through the rest of 2021 and probably some in 2022 as well, and then maybe some smaller patches in 2023, which definitely could be possible. That would be roughly 3 years after New Horizons originally released in 2020. So the developers themselves are kind of saying that we will probably see updates for 2 to 3 years, but when they're talking about new surprises in the game, that could mean a lot more than just updates, so we do kind of have to take this interview with a little bit of a grain of salt. However, recently we did get a much more sort of conclusive kind of answer from Doug Bowser, who is of course the president of Nintendo of America. And he said that we definitely see updates continuing into the next year, which of course has already been true. This update was this interview, I should say, was fairly recent, so we can kind of take his word that we're at least going to see more updates come into 2022, which is definitely really exciting. I think a lot of us did expect that the game would continue to see updates at least for 2022, however, so I imagine we will be seeing more updates in the future, and of course a lot of people are waiting for the next major update in the game, so we'll have to see what that is. Who knows when it's going to happen, but it does seem like Doug Bowser is confirming that we will at least get more updates in 2022. The only thing is, Nintendo is incredibly vague about their updates for this game. Nintendo kind of only announces it right on when it happens, basically. You know, as soon as we get the trailer, that's the first time anyone knew that it was happening. So they really don't want to give too much away about their update plan. Probably a lot of that is because they're not entirely sure that how many updates they'll be able to finish or what they're going to do. Maybe they don't have a sort of very specific plan. And, things can always change. The situation can always change for the game. So perhaps they don't want to promise anything that they can't deliver. But I definitely think they probably have all of the updates for this year probably already finished. They definitely finished them ahead of time. That's one thing that is for sure. They're a big company. I imagine they're probably working on Splatoon 3 right now, so they've probably already dedicated a lot of time in the past to finishing these updates, but of course they're going to take their time to kind of spread them out throughout the year, even though they've probably already finished them. So the updates for 2022, I think we can assume are probably already finished, and it will be coming throughout this year. Now, a really interesting thing is it seems like as of recent, Nintendo has kind of scaled back on their trailers and has used their website to announce the main details of their updates. For example, the anniversary update, the main bulk of the news actually came through the website. We did get a trailer for the Sanrio things earlier on in the month, but the rest of the update was announced through the website, which is really interesting because a lot of people don't realize that Nintendo actually uses these trailers to kind of market the game. So it seems kind of strange that they would not do one for this update, which might mean that in the future we might not actually see trailers for the updates anymore, but instead see some kind of social media post or a post on their website like we have here. Personally, I don't like that as much. I think the trailers are really exciting and I would rather see them happen, but since the updates have kind of been a bit smaller recently, maybe they don't feel the need to make a trailer for them anymore, which, you know, maybe that would help people avoid disappointment a little bit, which is kind of a good idea, but I still think hyping up the updates is a good thing for the game. It keeps players excited and makes people want to continue to play, so just seeing it announced on the website is a kind of a strange move. But I guess we'll just have to see what happens with the next update and whether they do decide to do a trailer for it or if they decide to solely announce it on their website. I'm sure we'll find out very soon, and hopefully we will get all of the details shared in one place, because last time they kind of shared all the update details over like a bunch of different places, which made it a little bit confusing. So I want to talk about Animal Crossing New Leaf, which actually did receive its own massive content update later on. This was in 2016, and bear in mind, the game released for the first time in November 2012, and then for the rest of the world basically in the middle of 2013. So that's at least 3 years later the game got an update, which I do think is very likely for Animal Crossing New Horizons. They basically used this Welcome Amiibo update to sell more copies of Animal Crossing New Leaf, and it worked a treat. It worked really well. I remember buying a second copy of the game back then because, you know, why not? Back then you didn't need to have a second console to make a different town or whatever, so, you know, maybe you had more incentive back then, but still, I think it encouraged a lot of people to either buy second copies or it encouraged people who maybe didn't play originally to finally pick up the game. So it goes to show that even years later, 3 years on, the game could receive a massive content update. I do think that's very likely. I think they will follow that same type of system for Animal Crossing New Horizons. Of course, I do think a lot of the reason why they did this update was to kind of tide fans over, because at this point fans were so eagerly awaiting the next main Animal Crossing game, and I guess Nintendo just didn't have it ready by then, so maybe they wanted to do something that could kind of keep fans interested in the franchise until they could finally release New Horizons, because back then that was the era of the 3DS and the Wii U, and I think a lot of people were expecting a Switch game for the an Animal Crossing game for the Wii U. But of course that never happened. It came out on the Switch, so we had to wait a really long time between New Leaf and New Horizons. So this update kind of tided fans over, and if the next major Animal Crossing game is a ways off, this could be something that they do to tide us over. Or, you know, they may do a massive update like the Welcome Amiibo update earlier on into the game's lifespan. Either way, for those of you who are kind of worried about the game never getting the content you want, it does go to show that Nintendo is capable of doing these massive updates for Animal Crossing, which can contain a whole ton of new content. I also wanted to take a quick look at another game that the developers work on, which is Splatoon, and of course right now they're busy working on Splatoon 3, but they worked very hard to make sure that Splatoon 2 had a ton of updates, and of course Splatoon 2 had a really long lifespan. In fact, it recently got an update in 2021. It wasn't a major one, but still. Of course, they also had DLC for the game, paid DLC, which I honestly do think is unlikely for New Horizons. I don't think we're going to see paid DLC, so if you're worried about that, I wouldn't worry too much. I think that's much less likely for a game like this. Of course, the updates for Splatoon were a little bit different because many of them were focused on balancing and patches related to the game, because obviously it's a competitive online game, very different than New Horizons. But it does go to show that the developers probably have a very similar update plan for New Horizons that they had with Splatoon. So I think it's very likely that if Splatoon still got major updates 2 years later after being released, we can most likely expect to see New Horizons get the same. So I think right now we'll at least expect to see updates into 2023, but who knows? It's very likely that maybe even in the future we'll see even bigger updates that we aren't expecting yet. So we'll just have to see what happens, and I'd love for you guys to let me know in the comment section down below, how long do you think Animal Crossing New Horizons is gonna be updated? Do you think we are gonna see 2 more years or 3 more years worth of updates for the game? Is the game gonna have a long lifespan, or is Nintendo kind of gonna move away from it now that the developers are working on Splatoon 3? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below, and if you made it to the end, be sure to comment Bob's Gang so I know that you did. If you want to help support my channel, click the join button down below the video to become a channel member. You can get a whole bunch of cool perks for doing so, like exclusive emojis, a badge by your name, and of course you get featured at the end of every video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and turn on channel notifications for more Animal Crossing videos. You can check out 2 more videos on the right side of the screen, and once again, I want to thank you for watching and catch you in the next video.